This is an ecosystem, a self-sustaining aquarium. No filter, no water change, no addition of carbon dioxide or other fertilizers. My last aquarium, which I gave up on many years ago, was one for which I spent a lot of money on equipment and which took a lot of time to maintain. But many years later, I found an abandoned aquarium. Not wanting to waste time with the maintenance of so many equipments, I bought a potting soil bag, a worm casting bag, and a gravel bag. I first sieved them and then washed them with dechlorinated water so as not to destroy the biodiversity in the soil. I washed the soil in several waters and removed the pieces of wood that rose to the surface of the water. After which I put the soil in the aquarium and covered it with a layer of gravel. I leveled the surface of the gravel and poured water on it. Then I tried to remove the air bubbles trapped in the gravel because it has the potential to create anaerobic zones where toxic gases can accumulate. But the water became whitish, and a white film formed on the surface of the water. I tried to remove it. I thought that now was the time to plant the plants. But unfortunately, some of the plants arrived wilted and others with algae. For a low-tech aquarium, it is good that the aquarium is well planted from the beginning. Some of the plants will adapt to this ecosystem, others will not. For this reason, I tried to plant as many species as possible. I finished planting, but I noticed some creatures in the aquarium. I can't figure out where they come from the plants or from the substrate. The light intensity is at maximum. At the moment, I am focused on not losing plants, but of course, for this reason, I expect algae. I didn't expect snails, but seeing that they eat algae, I'll leave them in the aquarium. Because the pearl plant's something hard to believe in an aquarium without the addition of carbon dioxide or other fertilizers. I left the light intensity at maxi for 12 hours a day. But the algae had started to grow explosively. I really like how this algae looks on this plant, which is why it became the logo of this YouTube channel. You can see it in the bottom right corner, and if you click on it, you can subscribe. Thank you. I tried to clean the aquarium of the white biofilm. I also did a water change. I did several water changes until the aquarium stabilized. Then I didn't do any more water changes. I just topped up with water. I never intended to give up water exchanges. That came later when I wanted to test the limits of such an ecosystem. Many people warned me with this aquarium that it needed a filter, or at least a water pump to circulate the water. Thinking that this would help me get rid of the biofilm, I installed a water pump and a heater because the weather was starting to get cold. But this was not the biggest problem of this ecosystem. Remember these worms taken with the plants or the substrate? I researched, and they are planarian worms. They attack fish and other marine life, I want to get rid of them, but without using chemicals. Chemicals will destroy all life forms in the substrate, so I will try with a trap. I managed to catch 2 such worms with tweezers without breaking them. I read that if you break such a worm in 2, there will be 2 such worms in the aquarium. Because I wasn't catching any other Panarian worms, I tried several types of bait. I tried different types of fish food, shrimp food, and even chicken. But all I caught were some little worms, which I knew nothing about. 10 days later, I decided that the aquarium was safe for the first occupants of this ecosystem: red cherry shrimp. They will be part of the cleaning team because they eat algae, dead plant parts, and other debris. Along with the shrimps, I also received some small unknown snails. I put them in the aquarium too. Looking closely at the shrimp, I noticed many unidentified species in the aquarium. At this moment, I realized that this ecosystem was on the right track, but I still had no idea what was going to await me. The shrimps have started to explore the aquarium with interest. I also noticed another species of snail that I didn't know I had in the aquarium. I don't know why I haven't seen this snail before because it's quite big. I trimmed the plants for the first time. I had a hard time deciding what fish to buy for this type of aquarium. In order not to upset the balance of the ecosystem, I bought small fish. The only problem is that there are 20 fish in total. Normally, you might think how so many fish can live in an aquarium without a filter. I thought differently. These fish feel good in larger groups. If the fish do not feel well, they release a stress hormone into the water, and in an aquarium without water exchange, this could be fatal for the entire ecosystem. I added 2 more snails that are known for their appetite for algae, but at the same time they cannot breed in fresh water. The next day, the fish were already looking better. They were starting to regain their colors. I decided to give them something to eat. I have never added fertilizers or chemicals to this aquarium. I think if I add chemicals, I will kill all the beneficial bacteria in this ecosystem, and it will destroy all balance. I never thought an ecosystem like this could look so good, but I learned that some very small changes can radically influence the ecosystem. I thought I'd surprise the shrimp. But I was also surprised with a snail found in the moss. I put it in the aquarium too. But the surprises didn't end there. When I put the moss in the aquarium, some big bubbles came out of the substrate. What could these bubbles be? I told myself it was nothing important, and I continued to feed the fish. And for the shrimp and snails every few months, I give them some calcium mineral. surprise, again, some bubbles came out of the substrate. I don't know what to think anymore. I did some water tests because I found a dead shrimp. But I didn't find anything alarming, and I don't know if the water parameters should be like in a normal aquarium. But I did do a water change. I didn't even think about giving up on water changes. And this is a good thing, because if I look at the past, it doesn't seem to me that the ecosystem was ready to stop water exchange. This was supposed to make the moss look like a tree. Instead, when I tried to put it out of the aquarium, I noticed more and more bubbles coming out of the substrate. Two days later, I fed the fish again. For all possible reasons, I feed fish a maximum of 3 times a week. After all this time, I noticed new species in the aquarium. I don't even know if I should intervene or let everything take place by itself. The algae started to grow out of control. At first, I cleaned the plants of algae or removed the plants affected by algae. But later, there was too much algae to do that anymore. The algae wasn't the only problem. Many of the plants had started to have holes in their leaves, or their leaves were falling off. Also, the number of snails was starting to increase. Something was starting to change in the aquarium, but I don't know what caused this change. I did some water tests, but the water parameters are the same as always. I started from the idea that there was something wrong with the light, and I changed the intensity and duration of the light several times. I am aware that many plants in this aquarium suffer from a lack of nutrients, but I wanted to reduce the number of algae. After 100 days, this ecosystem has already gone through many changes. I am still analyzing the nature of this kind of ecosystem. But its evolution in the future is a surprise. You never know what it can offer. I accidentally noticed that the ecosystem is better when I do water changes less often. So I started doing water changes less often. Then I stopped doing water changes at all. I started to combat algae. I didn't want to use chemicals, so I found a method called blackout. This method requires that the aquarium not receive any light at all. It can even be covered with a blanket to prevent any light from reaching the aquarium. This method was effective in combating algae. But the plants also suffered. Panicked, it seems to me that I made too many radical decisions. No water changes, blackout. I trimmed many plants with algae, so I gave the ecosystem time to recover. But I couldn't stay away for long. I made a visual change. I didn't expect this aquarium to have such an evolution. I wanted to prove the opposite, but it seems that now I'm surprised that the plants survived for so long without carbon dioxide, without fertilizers, without root tabs or other chemicals. I'm starting to think that there is a kind of balance in this ecosystem, because when I make some changes, even small ones, like cutting some plants, other effects are immediately noticeable. That's why I can say that this aquarium is an ecosystem. I can't say it's beautiful, but it's definitely an ecosystem. I don't even know if it's stable, but I think of it as constantly evolving, like the seasons. Since the shrimp don't reproduce, I decided to be more careful with their diet. I boiled a spinach leaf for them. They enjoyed it. But unfortunately, the red plants don't seem to be surviving. For this reason, I started increasing the light intensity, which I had decreased because of the algae. Although I only wanted 2 nerite snails in this aquarium, it is currently populated by over 100 snails, invasive species. I decided to investigate if there are other bubbles in the aquarium substrate. There are more gas bubbles than I expected, but I don't know what gas it is. And even if I did, I don't know what to do next. I thought I would investigate further and looked carefully at the fertile substrate. I noticed many large gas bubbles. These are formed in this substrate as a result of biochemical reactions. I noticed in the gravel covering this substrate some smaller bubbles. The gas bubbles are smaller and smaller towards the surface of the gravel. So the conclusion is that the gravel acts as a diffuser for the gases produced in the soil. I wonder if I had used sand instead of gravel, if it would have done the same with the gases. I think there are more gases, but are these gases dangerous? If you have a different opinion, leave me a comment with what you think. I did a series of water tests because I didn't know if these gas bubbles were affecting my water parameters, but also because some plants grew without leaves on the stem, and other plants lost their leaves and then died. But the water parameters were unchanged. I also tested phosphates this time and was surprised to find that the value was very high. I looked for the source and found that the tap water was the reason. For this reason, I bought 2 gallons of water, and when the water evaporated, I topped up with this water. It's been over half a year since I've had this ecosystem, and I realized that the light doesn't reach everywhere in the aquarium. So I raised the LED lamp. On the same day, I also made a decision, an extremely risky one, to remove the water pump from the aquarium. So no water movement from now on. I want to keep the ecosystem as low as possible. The aquarium remained equipped with an LED lamp and a heater during the cold season. In the following days, I kept the aquarium under observation. I didn't know what would happen without water movement, but I was also afraid for the heater. It only heats the water around it, and in the corners of the aquarium, the water is very cold. A thick layer of biofilm formed incredibly quickly and covered the entire surface of the water. Of all the snail species in this aquarium, only one species mobilized to eat the biofilm. A few days later, I noticed the water movement. At first, I thought it was just me, but then I realized that the heater is creating water movement around it. I wonder if the LED lamp, which is very hot, is also creating water movement in this aquarium. The number of snails was increasing. While the number of shrimp was decreasing. Why are red cherry shrimp not breeding in this aquarium? I have identified two general reasons. Either they are stressed because they have nowhere to hide in the aquarium, or they are not being fed quality food. I tried to fix these two problems, and soon I started seeing more and more baby shrimp in the aquarium. Seeing this, I started to diversify the food I give to the shrimp. I boiled a piece of broccoli for 5 minutes to soften it and prevent it from floating, and put it in the aquarium. The shrimp enjoyed this surprise. But I was also surprised to notice that the fish stole some of the broccoli, too. Broccoli is everyone's favorite, from small to large. But the smell of it reached the substrate of the aquarium, where it created agitation. With the passage of time, more and more plants were losing survival struggle. I noticed that red plants have the slightest chance of survival in this type of ecosystem. Some red plants died because I turned down the light too much. I'm going to plant more red plants, but I'll give them better light. This is what the aquarium looks like now. I don't know what happened, but the plants stopped growing. Even the algae stopped growing. That's why I made the aquarium look like this. I want to test a new theory of mine. I think the nutrients in such an aquarium are limited. They are not enough for all the plants. I wanted to test if I reduce the number of plants. Will there be a change in growth of the remaining plants? I took a big risk with this experiment, but it turned out that I was right. The plants started to grow again. And the red plants, the few that remain, started to intensify their color. If I don't want to use chemicals to fight algae, in my search I found a lesser-known snail, pink lady snail. After comparing this snail with nearite snail for a long time, I came to the conclusion that pink lady snail is better. Curiously, I hadn't even heard of this snail until recently. Eats more, eats faster, eats algae and other debris from the substrate on the aquarium glass. The plants started to recover. That means I was right. The ecosystem needed time to replenish its nutrients. Time has passed, and this ecosystem has been around for 1 year. I thought I would give the fish and shrimp a special meal. Everyone attended the party. There was plenty of food. But the party was over. Everyone seemed to be waiting for what was to come. With fewer plants in the aquarium, with a different lighting program, the plants started to grow more beautifully. And algae was no longer a problem. I just thought that if I hadn't made some mistakes, I might have had more plants in the aquarium, especially the red ones. Only one species of red plant survived without the addition of carbon dioxide, without liquid fertilizers, and without root tabs. I started looking for other recommendations of plants that can survive in this type of ecosystem. All I found were just some recommendations. But I didn't find any clear evidence, for example, of red plants surviving in aquariums for several years. So I made my own list of red plants that could survive in such an ecosystem. Thanks to those who recommended such plants to me or gave me other valuable information. You contributed to the success of this ecosystem. For a few weeks, a few hours a day, I analyzed which plants would be suitable for an aquarium without fertilization. Because plants are quite expensive, I tried to choose the safest plants, but with a variety of species. This is what it looks like in the end. Only the planting took a few hours. And for this video, I worked dozens of hours. Now is the time to give a like and subscribe if you appreciate the work I have done. Bonus, I left you an explicit video in the description with the plants used. Thank you. I decided to also use 2 pieces of red moorwood. Let me tell you how I made it not float and decontaminate it. I put the wood in a bucket. I put coarse salt, and I added boiling water to cover the wood. Every day, for 3-4 days, I repeated this operation. Everywhere I read, it says that red plants need strong light. So I increased the light intensity much more than I used to. But I also adjusted the light spectrum. And now the light program has a siesta, as recommended by the Wallstadt method. That is, the aquarium receives 5 hours of light in the morning, 5 hours of break, then another 5 hours of light in the evening. More and stronger light is good for the plants, but the algae also grow faster. The snails and shrimps do their job very well. They keep the algae under control. But I thought about adding some herbivorous fish, which prefer plants. I chose these fish with emotion for several reasons. The aquarium has no filter. With these 6 fish, there will be 26 fish in the aquarium. I don't know if they will adapt to this ecosystem. These fish live in their natural environment in running waters, so they usually swim in the water currents. Here is a leaf of a red plant. If it wasn't recommended by a subscriber, to whom I thank, I would never have planted this plant. I thought it had no chance, but it seems I was wrong again. However, the demanding plants still had problems adapting. And the curious thing is that some of the green plants are melting, while other red plants have no problems growing. A few days later, I trimmed the plants, and then I thought about feeding the fish some vegetables. The vegetables were a huge success, and I was impressed by the fact that onion, garlic, and potato were the favorites at this feast. Or maybe the fish and shrimp were already used to the cucumber, carrot, and lettuce they had eaten before, and wanted to try something new. I was a little afraid that too much food would upset the balance in this ecosystem. But something amazing happened. After I removed the vegetables from the aquarium, the snails started looking for vegetable remains in the substrate. And other small creatures that live deep in the substrate came to the surface in search of vegetables. A month later, I decided to repeat the experiment. To feed the fish with more types of food. This time I chose 10 types of meat and meat preparations. This time I was more attentive to the fish's behavior. I noticed that this group of fish has a leader. He is the bravest of all the fish of his species in this aquarium. The other fish do not have the courage to approach the food until after their leader has investigated the food first. Immediately, all the fish came to eat. But the shrimp and snails did not stay away. To my surprise, no fish or shrimp were affected by eating sausage or salami. So, a month later, I gave them eggs to eat. Boiled egg and raw egg. The fish and shrimp, when they sensed the egg, started to behave curiously. I have never seen such behavior before. It was like they couldn't control themselves. When I saw how well the plants were growing with the new light settings, I realized that light in such an ecosystem is the secret. So I decided to change the LED lamp I was using. I bought a more expensive LED lamp, which, according to the manufacturer, comes with some innovations that help plants grow more. I can't say yet if this light source is better, but I can say that there is a difference, positive for some plants and negative for others. 3 species of plants planted a second time died. And other plants don't want to grow or grow very slowly. But this ecosystem managed to maintain itself only equipped with an LED lamp. When I decided to stop the water changes or remove the water pump from the aquarium, I took a big risk. But it also made me curious, because I only observed its evolution. For the future, I want to keep this ecosystem alive as long as possible. But I have noticed some changes that worry me. Has this ecosystem reached its end? Thank you very much for supporting such projects.